Family reunions are supposed to be harmless. But when my uncle said he deserved my grandmother's vacation home more than I did, I realized this wasn't about family at all. It was about entitlement. And I decided to end it. I didn't sell the cabin because I stopped loving it. I sold it because I finally understood I was the only one who did. Everyone else loved what it gave them. The weekends. The photos. The bragging rights. The free place to drink and pretend they were the kind of family that has a lake house. They loved calling it ours with their mouths full of food they didn't buy. They loved telling stories about my grandmother like they had been there for her, like they had earned her memory. And then, at the reunion, my uncle leaned back in a chair that I paid to reupholster, looked me in the eye in front of everyone, and said, "I deserve your vacation home more than you." He didn't say it as a joke. He said it like a verdict. So I smiled, nodded, let him enjoy his moment, and I sold it the next week. My grandmother June bought that cabin when I was 8. Back then it wasn't a vacation home. It was a small, stubborn little A-frame by a lake that didn't have a fancy dock or a hot tub or any of the stuff people imagine when they say lake house. It had a crooked porch step. A wood stove that smoked if you didn't coax it right. A view of water that glittered like someone spilled coins across it. And it had my grandmother in it, humming while she cooked, the kind of humming that made you feel safe without knowing why. June wasn't a woman who impressed people in rooms. She wasn't loud. She didn't compete. She didn't need an audience. She was the person you called when your life fell apart. She was the person who showed up. When my parents were divorcing, she took me for entire weekends just so I didn't have to hear the shouting. When I got older and tried to act like I didn't care about anything, she never pushed. She just kept leaving the light on, literally and emotionally. She used to say the cabin was a place where people remember who they are. I didn't understand that until I grew up and my family started using it as a stage. My uncle Brad started calling it our cabin the moment June bought it. Brad is my mom's older brother. The kind of man who thinks being the loudest person in the room is the same as being the most important. He would show up to the cabin uninvited, usually with a cooler and a smug grin, and say things like, "We're family, Junie. You can't keep this place to yourself." June would laugh politely, because June was kind, and say, "Brad, you can't just show up." Brad would respond with his favorite trick. "Oh, come on," he'd say loudly, so whoever was around would hear. "Don't be like that." That phrase was how he turned boundaries into accusations. If you said no, you were like that. Mean. Selfish. Dramatic. Ungrateful. Brad loved that word too. Ungrateful. As if other people owed him gratitude for tolerating him. When June got older, Brad got worse. Not because he loved her more. Because he sensed weakness in the system. He started suggesting improvements. "We should renovate," he'd say. "We should add a deck. We should make it nicer." We. Always we. But the moment June asked, "Are you paying?" his smile would flatten. "I mean, it's for the family," he'd reply, like that was a currency. When June's health started failing, the cabin became even more symbolic. It wasn't just a place. It was leverage. Brad knew it. I knew it. June knew it. June just never said it out loud. Until she did. The last year of June's life was slow. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just a gradual narrowing of her world. Her hands shook sometimes. She forgot names. She slept more. She stopped driving at night. She got quieter. And the people who claimed to love her the most suddenly became very busy. Brad stopped coming by unless there was something to gain. He'd call once in a while and say, "Hey Junie, just checking in," and then launch into a story about how hard his life was. June would listen patiently, because that's what she did. When she hung up, she'd look at me and say, "Your uncle takes up a lot of air." I started visiting more. Every weekend at first, then more often when I could. I'd bring groceries, fix things, mow the yard, patch the roof, winterize the pipes. Stuff Brad loved to talk about but never actually did. June would make tea and watch me work, and sometimes she'd say things like, "Don't let them wear you down." Them? I'd ask, playing dumb. June would just smile, sad and knowing. "Family can be the hungriest people," she said once, stirring sugar into her tea. "They eat you because they think you won't say no." I laughed like it was a joke. It wasn't. June died in late October. The trees had already turned. The air had that sharp smell that means winter is coming whether you're ready or not. She died in her sleep. Peaceful, they said. The first call I got after the one from the nurse wasn't from my mom. It was from Brad. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't ask what happened. He said, "So, what's the plan with the cabin?" That was my uncle's grief. Logistics and entitlement. My mom called later, crying, genuinely hurt. But even she, through the tears, said, "Brad's going to be a mess about the house." Like it was weather again. Like Brad's entitlement was just something you packed for. The will reading happened a week later in a small lawyer's office that smelled like paper and furniture polish. My mom held my hand. I remember that part, because it was one of the few times in my adult life she touched me like I was her kid again. Brad came in late, loudly apologizing to no one, and dropped into a chair like he owned the room. Denise, his wife, followed with that tight little smile people wear when they've rehearsed being offended. Brad nodded at the attorney like they were old friends. "So," Brad said, rubbing his hands together. "Let's hear it." The attorney adjusted his glasses and read. June left small things to people. Jewelry. Furniture. A few checks. Then he got to the cabin. "To my grandchild Avery," he read, "I leave the property at Lake Briar, including all contents, to be held solely in their name." Brad's smile didn't vanish. It froze. "What?" he said, laughing once. Like the attorney had made a typo. The attorney didn't react. He continued. "June also left a letter." The attorney slid it across the desk toward me. I remember my hands shaking when I unfolded it, not because of money, but because June's handwriting was there, real and familiar. It was short. A page. But it hit like a full conversation. "Avery. You were the one who came when I was tired. You were the one who fixed what broke without keeping score. This cabin isn't a prize. It's peace. I'm giving it to you because you'll protect it. And protect yourself, too. Brad will tell you he deserves it. He will tell you it's for family. He will make you feel guilty because guilt is his only tool. Don't hand him your peace. Love, June." My throat tightened. Across the room, Brad shifted in his chair. He watched my face, trying to read the letter through my reaction. "What does it say?" he demanded. The attorney cleared his throat. "That letter is addressed to Avery." Brad's face reddened. "So she poisoned them against me. No grief. No loss. Just offense." My mom's eyes flashed. "Brad, stop." Brad turned to her, voice booming. "Stop what?" "She left a whole house to one grandkid. That's not fair." Denise put her hand on his arm like she was calming a child. We all know June wasn't thinking clearly toward the end. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. They weren't just angry. They were already rewriting her death to suit their needs. For the first few months after June died, I tried to be reasonable. I didn't want war. I didn't want drama. I wanted to grieve and keep the place that held my safest memories. I told Brad he could come by sometimes if he asked first. I told my mom she was always welcome. I even let Denise host a small, family weekend, once, on the condition that they cleaned up after themselves and didn't invite random friends. They agreed, smiling. Then I arrived Sunday afternoon to find cigarette butts in June's flower beds, beer bottles in the trash, and 3 extra cars in the driveway. Brad was sitting on the porch like a king. "Oh," he said, grinning. "We had some people stop by. Hope that's okay." And there it was again. Hope that's okay. The boundary test disguised as casual charm. I swallowed it. Because I was still trying to be the person June believed I was. Protect peace. Don't turn into them. But peace, I learned, is hard to protect when your family thinks it belongs to them. The reunion was planned for midsummer. My mom insisted it would be good. That we needed togetherness. That June would want us close. I didn't say what I was thinking. June would want Brad far away from her porch. Still, I agreed, because grief makes people desperate for normalcy. We set a date. People RSVP'd. Brad offered to handle the grilling. Denise offered to do decor. I offered the cabin. And that was my mistake. The morning of the reunion, I woke up early and walked down to the lake alone. The water was glassy. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. For a few minutes, I could almost pretend June was inside, humming, waiting for me to come back with coffee. Then I heard cars. Doors slamming. Laughter that didn't belong here. And as I walked back toward the cabin, I saw Brad unloading coolers like he owned the place. He spotted me and raised his arms wide. "Avery," he shouted. "Look at this. Family back where it belongs. It belongs." My stomach tightened. Because I knew what was coming. I didn't know how far he'd go. But I knew he'd go. By noon, the cabin didn't feel like June's anymore. It felt like a venue. Brad had set up folding tables across the yard without asking. Denise had rearranged the living room furniture for flow. Someone I didn't recognize was plugging a speaker into an outlet near the porch. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter where June used to line up her jars of spices, now covered in chips and soda. My mom came up beside me, voice low. "Try to relax. It's just one day." "One day becomes precedent," I said. She sighed. "Avery, please. Your uncle is sensitive about this." Sensitive. That word again. Always used to excuse the person doing the damage. Outside, Brad clapped his hands together. "All right, everybody. Let's get this grill going." People cheered. I noticed Brad's friends. Not cousins. Not family. Friends. Loud ones. The kind who treat any space like a bachelor party if no one stops them. I walked out onto the porch. "Brad," I said. "Can we talk for a minute?" He waved me off. "In a bit. I'm in the middle of something. It won't take long." He sighed theatrically and followed me a few steps away, just far enough to look cooperative. "What's up?" he asked, already annoyed. "You invited people I don't know," I said. "That wasn't the agreement." Brad laughed. "Come on. They're basically family." "No," I replied. "They're not. This is my place." The laugh disappeared. "There it is," he said. "That tone." "What tone?" I asked. "The mind tone," he snapped. "This is supposed to be a family place." "It is," I said. "Which is why I get a say." Brad leaned closer. "You're getting real territorial over something you didn't even pay for." I felt my chest tighten. "I paid for plenty," I said evenly. "Just not in cash." Brad rolled his eyes. "Oh, here we go. You did some chores, big deal." That was the moment. Not the shouting. Not the entitlement. The dismissal. The erasure of every weekend, every repair, every quiet moment that kept this place alive while he treated it like a free perk. Before I could respond, Denise swooped in, eyes already shiny. "What's going on?" she asked loudly. "Why does everything have to be so tense?" Brad threw his hands up. "They're acting like we're intruders." Denise looked at me like I'd slapped her. "Avery, we're family. Family doesn't invite strangers into someone else's home without asking," I replied. Her mouth fell open. "So that's how you see us?" Brad smirked. "Told you." My mom rushed over. Okay. Let's not do this today. Today. Always today." Brad turned to the growing crowd, voice carrying now. "Apparently, we're guests here." A few people laughed awkwardly. Someone said, "Awkward." Brad continued, louder. "I mean, after everything this family's been through, you'd think sharing wouldn't be such a problem." I felt eyes on me. This was his move. Public pressure. Make me the villain so compliance looked like kindness. I took a breath. "Brad, stop." He grinned. "Stop what?" "Speaking truth." "No," I said. "Speaking over boundaries." That's when he dropped it. He pointed at the cabin behind us, the porch June had built herself. "I deserve this place more than you do." The yard went silent. Brad folded his arms. "I've got kids. I've got responsibilities. You're one person. You don't even use it half the time." I stared at him. "You deserve it," I repeated. "Yeah," he said. "I do. June should have given it to me. Or at least made it communal." Denise nodded vigorously. "It's only fair." My mom looked at me, pleading. "Avery, maybe there's a compromise." I felt something inside me go still. Very still. "You think this is about fairness," I said quietly. "It's not." Brad scoffed. "Of course it is. It's about access," I replied. "And you don't respect limits." He laughed. "Listen to yourself." People shifted uncomfortably. Some looked down. Some looked curious. Brad saw the attention and leaned into it. "You know what?" he said loudly. "Let's be honest. You wouldn't even have this place if it wasn't for family. You didn't earn it." I felt heat rush to my face. June's words echoed in my head. "This cabin isn't a prize. It's peace." Brad stepped closer. "You're being selfish." There it was. The word he used to end every argument. Selfish. The accusation that turned saying no into a moral failure. I looked at the faces around me. At my mom, tense and silent. At cousins who'd never lifted a finger here. At strangers drinking beer on June's porch. And I realized something simple and devastating. This place would never be peaceful again as long as they thought it belonged to them. I didn't say anything else. I just nodded. Brad mistook it for surrender. "There we go," he said smugly. "See? You know I'm right." I walked back inside. Not to sulk. To decide. I spent the rest of the reunion watching. Watching Brad take over the grill and complain about the heat. Watching Denise rearrange June's photos to look nicer. Watching my mom try to smooth every moment like a nervous hostess. No one noticed me slipping into June's bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the nightstand. Her letter was still there. I read it again, slower this time. "Don't hand him your piece." I took a deep breath. Then I pulled out my phone and emailed a realtor I'd spoken to months earlier, half as a joke, half as a contingency. "Is the market still strong?" I typed. The reply came an hour later. Very. Especially lakefront. Want to talk Monday? I stared at the message. Outside, Brad laughed loudly, telling a story about the time he practically rebuilt this place. I typed back. Yes. I put the phone down and closed the nightstand. For the first time since June died, I felt calm. The week that followed was quiet. Too quiet. Brad texted like nothing had happened. Great reunion. Kids loved it. We should do it again soon. I didn't respond. My mom called. Brad feels like things got a little heated. A little, I replied. She sighed. You know how he is. I do, I said. That's why this is happening. What's happening? She asked. I didn't answer. Because I wanted it done before it became a debate. Monday morning, I met the realtor at the cabin. She walked through with a professional eye, noting the view, the lot, the potential. This will go fast, she said. Are you sure? I looked out at the lake. At the water June loved. I'm sure, I said. It's time. We listed it that afternoon. By Wednesday, we had 3 offers. By Friday, we were under contract. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Because the hardest part wasn't selling the cabin. It was letting go of the idea that my family would ever respect it. I told them on Sunday. I didn't plan it like a speech. I didn't rehearse. I just waited until the moment presented itself, because with Brad, moments like that always do. My mom invited everyone back for leftovers and goodbyes. Brad showed up late again, loud again, acting like the place was already his future. He walked straight onto the porch, kicked off his shoes, and said, we should talk about next month. I've got some buddies who want to use the cabin for a long weekend. I didn't answer. He frowned. Did you hear me? Yes, I said. I heard you. People were milling around the yard. A few cousins were half listening. Denise was inside, already poking through drawers like she had a right to. Brad followed me to the edge of the deck. So, I said, that won't be happening. He laughed. Don't start this again. I'm not, I replied. I'm ending it. That got his attention. What does that mean? He asked. I took a breath. I sold the cabin. The words landed flat at first, like they didn't register. Brad blinked. You did what? I sold it, I repeated. It's under contract. The color drained from his face. You're joking, he said, scanning my expression for a crack. This is a joke. It's not. Denise appeared in the doorway. What's not? Brad pointed at me, voice rising. They're saying they sold the cabin. Denise laughed sharply. That's not funny. It's not meant to be, I said. The yard quieted. Conversation stopped. People turned. My mom stepped closer. Avery, when? Friday, I said. We close in a few weeks. Brad's mouth opened, then closed. You can't do that, he said finally. That's family property. No, I replied. It's mine. Legally and completely. Denise's face crumpled instantly. After everything we've been through? Brad's voice went hard. You did this to punish me. I shook my head. I did this to protect myself. He laughed, loud and sharp. Protect yourself from what? Family? Yes, I said. From entitlement. Brad stepped closer, finger jabbing the air. You're selfish. You always have been. I didn't flinch. You told me you deserved it more than I did, I said. I believed you. He scoffed. You're twisting my words. I'm taking them seriously, I replied. My mom's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you talk to us first? Because talking never changed anything, I said gently. It just delayed the next demand. Brad turned to the others. Are you hearing this? Some people looked uncomfortable. One cousin shrugged slightly, like maybe this had been inevitable. Denise started crying loudly. That cabin was our connection to June. No, I said. It was June's connection to peace. Brad exploded. You robbed my kids, he shouted. You robbed this family. I met his gaze. No. You tried to take it. He clenched his fists. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think I'm done being used. Brad's face twisted. You'll regret this. I already don't, I replied. He lunged toward me, stopped by two cousins who stepped in reflexively. Not to protect me. To prevent a scene. That told me everything. Denise wailed about betrayal. Brad paced, swearing. My mom cried quietly, torn between roles she'd never learned to refuse. I stood there, strangely calm. Because the worst had already happened. They'd shown me exactly who they were. Brad finally looked at me, eyes wild. Don't expect us to be there for you anymore. I nodded. That's the point. Silence fell. Heavy. Final. I walked inside, grabbed my bag, and took one last look at the living room. At June's chair. The window she loved. I whispered, I'm sorry, to no one and everyone. Then I left. The cabin closed 3 weeks later. I didn't go back on the final walk-through day. I couldn't. I'd already taken what mattered. June's recipes. A few photos. The old kettle she swore made better tea because it had memory. The rest was just wood and glass and echoes. The realtor called me after the papers were signed. It went smoothly, she said. The buyers love it. They plan to keep it simple. Simple. June would have liked that. When I hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, staring at nothing. Not sad exactly. More like, finished. The fallout kept trying to reach me. Brad left voicemails that swung wildly between rage and nostalgia. 1 minute he was threatening lawyers. The next he was talking about childhood summers and what June would have wanted. Denise sent messages full of crying emojis and guilt-soaked paragraphs about family legacy and how could you do this to the kids. My mom called every few days, voice thin and tired. He's really hurt, she'd say. This is tearing the family apart. Can't you at least apologize? For what? I finally asked. She didn't answer. That was the moment I realized something important. They didn't want understanding. They wanted access. So I stopped responding. I blocked Brad first. Then Denise. Then a few cousins who had suddenly found my number just to tell me how disappointed they were in me. The silence that followed felt strange. Then it felt peaceful. A month later, my mom came over. She sat at my kitchen table, hands folded, eyes scanning my apartment like she was trying to find something wrong with it. You didn't have to sell it, she said quietly. I did, I replied. If I wanted peace. She sighed. You know Brad's always been like that. I looked at her. That's why he's still like that. She flinched. I loved that cabin, she said. So did I replied. That's why I wouldn't let it turn into a battleground. She nodded slowly, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. Or maybe just seeing what she'd avoided for years. When she left, she hugged me awkwardly. June trusted you, she said. I know, I replied. That mattered more than approval. Some nights, I missed the lake. Not the place. The feeling. The quiet mornings. The way June used to hum while the coffee brewed. The sense that nothing was expected of me except to exist. But then I remember what it had become. A stage. A prize. A test of how much disrespect I'd tolerate to belong. Selling it didn't erase June. It honored her. She gave me that place to protect my peace, not sacrifice it. And the moment my family tried to take it by force, they proved exactly why she chose me. I don't talk to Brad anymore. Not because I'm angry. Because anger still ties you to someone. I'm not tied to him at all. I don't get invited to big family gatherings now. Holidays are quieter. Smaller. Better. Sometimes people ask if I regret it. If I regret selling a place full of memories. I tell them the truth. I didn't sell a cabin. I sold a lie. The lie that family means obligation without respect. The lie that inheritance makes you a resource. The lie that peace should be negotiable. Brad said he deserved my vacation home more than I did. He was right about one thing. He would have taken everything if I'd let him. So I didn't. I chose myself. And for the first time since June died, I think she'd be proud of me for that. I honored my grandmother the only way that mattered. By refusing to let anyone take what she trusted me with.